Local programming on KRWG made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
This is KRWG, TV, radio, online, news that matters. Now, across the Mesilla Valley and the borderland, the stories that shape our community. From the KRWG Broadcast Center at New Mexico State University, this is Newsmakers.
Up front this week, the story of El Paso's Henderson Middle School Chess Club is now the subject of a new book by teacher Saul Ramirez. We'll talk with the author and chess club coach coming up. First, we visit his classroom where chess homework was on the blackboard, but as producer Joe Widmer discovered, this is a story about a lot more than a game.
Ready! Shake hands and be good!
I've been teaching chess for around 15 years now. I started when I was in high school as a tutor, doing it with little kids in elementary. And as I went on, I became a college tutor, and I kept doing it in different middle schools. And then now as a teacher, I decided to start a chess team here at Henderson Middle School. Our first couple of years, we weren't that strong, given we didn't have that many kids. It's part of the process, right? But as we went on for the past 3 years, we've averaged from 30 to 60 kids. And I can honestly say here at Henderson, a good 80-90% knows how to play chess. How does it help them academically? Well, the concentration, the focus, that's the main thing, right? A lot of analysis. It helps them to get exposure, to go out and meet a lot of different people, a lot of different ethnicities. To our students, a lot of students don't get the opportunity to travel. So with the chess, with our activity, they get to travel. So far we've been to Louisville, Kentucky, we've been to Brownsville, we've been to McAllen, Texas, to Nashville, Tennessee, to Indianapolis. So they get that exposure, but at the same time, their academics is also doing very well.
Chess is more than a game. It's like life. You make your decisions. Either it's wrong, it's bad. If you make a bad decision, you lose. Bad decision in real life, consequences. Great moves, great things happen. So that's how I compare chess.
When it comes down to sitting down and playing a game of chess for 4 hours and sitting down in a classroom for 45 minutes, it's quite easy for them to comprehend everything that's being taught to them in their classrooms. And when it comes to the STAR test that we have here in Texas, well, it's easy for them to sit through the test, right? And not just sit, but to understand and actually perform well. Their personality improves. We teach them to be gentlemen, the guys. The ladies, we teach them to be ladies. We teach them to behave properly in all the settings. And quite honestly, I'm very happy that every time we travel out, everywhere we go, restaurants, the airport, wherever we're at, they tell us it's the most well-behaved group they've ever seen. We have 6 state championships, and we have 3 national championships as a team. And we have 2 students that have won first place in different divisions. It started with 4 kids. I remember my first year, I put up a poster board, and my goal was to have 100 students. It didn't happen. We ended up with 4, which was quite a disappointment. But I mean, those 4 kids stuck around. We actually went to state. They won state, so they did very good. I think that's what it all started, the little spark. We never went to go to nationals because at that point we did think it was too much. The following year, instead of 4, we have 6 kids. And it just kept growing and growing and growing. And then at that point, we figured, okay, we got to try a nationals, which we did. We went and we lost. We got 19th place. Everything went wrong. We had practice, but it didn't go our way. After that, I made a goal not to lose the nationals again. And it happened. The following year, we took 12 kids to state, 12 kids to nationals. And we did our best, and they won. Well, the competitions are every weekend, actually. Many of the times, unfortunately, we can't compete because of a money issue. Like I said, last tournament this weekend, it was $50 per kid, and some of our kids can't afford to pay that much that often. So we try to compete 2 tournaments a year, which is the Texas Scholastic State Tournament and the National Tournament. My kids, if it's competition, we get 10 hours a week of practice. Like any other sport, I require for them to have a high grade, and some of them do struggle at home and do struggle with their studies. I mean, we do give an opportunity, and we also offer tutoring to them. So we talk to them very closely and see their situation, see what's going on with them, so we can help them out. So if we see a C, a 70 or a 60, we don't just go at it and kick them out of our team. Rather, we question it and we see what we can do to bring it up.
It helps me focus on my classes. Without chess, I don't know, like my grades would be lower. Then chess has helped me like pick up my grades.
After playing chess, I noticed it helped me prepare myself for the future. I learned how to think, how to do retrograde analysis, which is thinking backwards, right? Seeing the end game first and then working towards the end game. I see most of the people that play are very successful in any career they do. They pick whichever it is, and it brings a lot of opportunities. Now that we wrote the book, the Champions Game, we've also created the foundation, the Champions Chess Foundation, which is going to be creating scholarships for them. So when they graduate from high school, they have a backup, right? So they can actually pay for their college. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things they have against them. We don't have perfect lives. No one does, right? But I figure our students struggle a little bit more being here in the border. And these 14 rules that we set there have found to be successful over the past 3 years, which like I said, we've won 6 state championships, and they continue to put in the hard work. One of the biggest questions I ask them is, are you guys nervous? And their answer is always no. And the next thing I ask them is, who's supposed to be nervous? And their answer is, they are. So it's just bringing up their self-esteem, right? I also tell them that we're a team, we're a family, and that we stick together. And don't forget not to come out until they finish the game. Never to give up. Be in there as long as they need to. Think out their game, think out their moves, and spend as much time as is necessary to win that game. What are my ways of teaching? Well, I like to be fun. I truly believe if the kids are not having fun, we're not going to win. It's not going to happen. As an adult, as a kid, I've always thought that having fun is the number one thing in a classroom setting and everywhere. I mean, we as adults, we enjoy having fun. And what's having fun? It also means having discipline. We're going to have the discipline, but they need to enjoy playing the game. They need to enjoy playing the tournament because it's long hours. A national tournament, probably one day they'll be awake from 7 in the morning to 12 at night. So if they're not enjoying it, they'll be very stressed and they can get sick and a lot of things can happen. So that's my main thing. That's my teaching philosophy. Have fun, enjoy it. The moment you're not doing it, let me know and we'll see what we can do. Despite of all the odds, everything they're facing against them, their daily problems at home, daily problems in school, they move everything aside. They've learned to mature at such a very young age and move everything aside and just go and compete. And just go and compete because they love it, because they enjoy it, and because they believe in me the way I believe in them.
And this amazing story is told in the book, The Champions Game by Saul Ramirez. He joins me now in studio. It's great to have you here today.
It's a pleasure, thank you.
I want to begin with something that you touch on in the video piece that we just saw, and certainly in the book as well, which is the identity of growing up on the border. Give me a sense of that and how it impacts what you do.
Well, I mean, growing up in the border as a Mexican-American myself, when I was a kid, it was kind of difficult. I mean, because at some point you feel like you don't belong from either side of the border. You're not from Mexico and you're not from the United States because you don't speak English correctly and you don't speak Spanish correctly. So, or you go to Mexico, you go to Juarez and you start speaking English, and it's quite disrespectful for some people. And over here in the United States, it used to be you speak Spanish and it was disrespectful. So it became very difficult. And as I was growing up, it became one of my goals to make a safe haven for the kids and to make them feel proud of their heritage and of who they are, and to grow up and get educated and not to be afraid of to show who they are and their culture, which having 2 languages is very important in this community.
And it's a benefit that goes beyond the community. I mean, there has to be a great pride that has to be instilled in young people to be bilingual. It's fabulous.
Absolutely, and a lot of people, believe it or not, don't want to speak Spanish, especially right here in the border. It's shameful to speak Spanish. It's sometimes shameful to listen to the Mexican music because the other culture is trying to be instilled in many occasions, not in all of them, but it is found in many times in our region. That's what happens. At least that's what happened to me. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I can communicate with my students and I can build that rapport so easily. because I understand them and I understand what they're going through. So being able to communicate brings me closer to our achievements.
Your students also come from low-income families. A third are English language learners, so they're learning English. I understand as well that some of your students live in Juarez.
Yes, a lot of them live over there. Many of them cross every day, and many of them live here yet during vacations, during breaks, they spend their time over there. So it is quite unsafe sometimes for them. I've heard a lot of stories. A lot of our kids, their families have been victims of the crime, and it's a shock to listen to their stories, especially because they're so close to them.
Mm-hmm. What kind of extra support do the students need, not only based on income, but this notion of living in two worlds, not just figuratively, but for some of the students, literally? I mean, if they're traveling across the border every day.
Yeah, in one of my other interviews, we mentioned that it's like a third dimension. It's like we're trapped in this third dimension in the border, and they need to know there's support for them. They need to know we believe in them, and they need to know that they're just regular people. They're common people. And I guess when they saw that in me, that's what brought them up their self-esteem, and that's what made them believe in themselves and they could achieve anything. And as you can see, they won state championships and national championships. So far, we have a total of 6 state and 3 national championships. And it just continues to grow, and it continues to get better because now they believe in themselves, and now they're transferring those same feelings and ideas to other students who are coming up to our team.
As you mentioned, you have a close relationship with your students. You relate to them very well because you grew up in Segundo Barrio in El Paso. Tell me about growing up and your experiences and how those influence you as an educator.
You know what? It talks about it in the book. It talks about growing up in Segundo. It's a beautiful community. The people are amazing. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody helps each other. And I think that's one of our biggest rules in our success, helping each other. But at the same time, there was a lot of drugs, there was a lot of gangs. And there's a point where you have to pick whether you are going to be part of a gang or you're going to become educated. And at some point, believe it or not, becoming educated, a lot of the gang members respect that. They show a lot of respect towards educated people because they're just people like you and I. We're all humans, and we all make mistakes. And some people don't feel like they have an out, and that's why they follow different pathways. But for those of us that we happen to have great mentors in our life, like all the ones I measured in the book, Mr. Olage, Mr. Gaspar Enriquez, Mr. Romo, Ms. Josie Carmona, who happened to be great mentors and helped me form my life. I mean, we found a different way. And this is what I'm trying to be to my students now, a good mentor so they can appreciate, not they can appreciate, but they can understand there's different things they can do in their life and they can pick now.
So you really recognized the impact that mentors had on you and your life, and you wanted to give back to students in the same way.
Absolutely, absolutely. That was my biggest goal. I mean, all these mentors, they're huge angels in front of me. Absolutely, who paved my way, who helped me out. Mr. Medina, my high school teacher. I mean, I'll never forget his words in explaining how I was going to be able to graduate from college, me and my wife, because it's difficult living in the neighborhood, like we call it in the ghetto, right? But it's also beautiful having that community. And then once you start going up, everyone starts helping out. And I think that's what happened with our champions, with our kids. They started seeing the success, and as you saw, the community came together. They all pitched in from $1 to $1,000 to $2,000 to $10,000, and everything became a beautiful story.
And we should mention that you were a chess champion before becoming a chess coach. Tell me about that.
Definitely. I've been playing chess since I was in 5th grade. I started with Mr. Romo in a summer camp. And the reason I joined is because of a shirt that he was going to give us that said Segundo Barrio. And it was a pride to be from the neighborhood, to belong somewhere.
And you have your Henderson chess shirt
my
on
Henderson
right now.
chess shirt, that's
Showing
what
the
I brought
pride,
it,
right?
yes. That's exactly why I brought it. And so I decided to join the team, right? Again, it took me off the streets. I mean, I had my bedroom. I like to tell this story. With my parents, we lived in a 3-bedroom apartment, in which one was a kitchen, a living room, and a bedroom for 5 people. So very small. I really never wanted to be home. I'd rather be outside doing something. At some point, I did think about joining gangs, but that's when chess presented itself. And it just took me out. It caught my attention. Mr. Romo presented us the options of going to state tournaments, fancy hotels, play all these different cultures, and it was magnificent. I played all through middle school, and in high school, my sophomore year in 2001, I won the 2001 state championship in Corpus Christi under 1,000 division. So at that point, I'll never forget that feeling of receiving that trophy, that moment of glory, and of thinking, wow, if I can achieve this, anything can be possible, and I can do anything in my life. And as I continue, I decided to do the same with my students, because it's a moment you'll never forget.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about what that was like for you growing up in Segundo Barrio and chess being your big activity. Did you take some razzing for that? I mean,
Definitely. I mean, no one wants to be a nerd. In fact, I tell my students when I was growing up in school, they would rarely ever see us carrying a book, because I mean, you would get bullied in the streets for trying to get educated. That's most definite. Playing chess, another thing, right? It's only for nerds, it's only for geeks, and it still transfers to nowadays, not just back then. I mean, a lot of kids don't want to be smart, they don't want to be intelligent, they don't want to be bullied. But it looks like in Henderson, we changed the atmosphere. Now our kids are the champions. They're the ones all the kids look up to.
Oh, that's
and,
great.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful seeing how my students are proud of being intelligent, are proud of being smart, and how other kids now want to do the same thing. And just recently, 2 of our students at Henderson Middle School won the essay contest, Do the Right Thing. And they'll be traveling to Washington, D.C., in which their essays are going to be put into the Library of Congress. And I want to mention they're not part of the chess team, but I do feel like our team is promoting that atmosphere of education in our school.
Yeah. What you talked about this a little in the video. What do you think it is about chess that seems to inspire young people far beyond the game?
When you start playing chess, it captures your attention right away, the pieces. You can set up a board anywhere, in any place, and people will just walk up to it and start moving pieces even if they don't know how. As soon as you learn how to move the pieces, then you want to learn more. So it just engages you immediately. And as it engages you, you start seeing all these different combinations, and then you start applying it to life, which is what I did with my students. Every opening, every move, I applied it to their life. I get to know my students first, and then I get to do analogies as to the game itself and the life they live. For example, I have a rule, never give up. Okay, and that's one of our biggest rules in chess. Even if you're the only piece standing, you only have the king, you will never throw your king down. That's one of the rules in my team. You will finish until the end, and your opponent finishes you. Because he might make a mistake, everybody makes mistakes, and you might get a draw. We have another rule, go big or go home. So before you sit down on that match, you must understand that you are going to win the game, and you are going in there because you're going to win. So you will never go in there with a mentality of defeat. And all those little rules, and then I also talk about isolated pawns, such as an isolated pawn is a pawn that it's by itself. And the same way a lot of our students are by ourselves. We have a student which only has grandma, was left alone by mom and dad, by parents. And we talked about how that isolated pawn, even though it can seem weak and defenseless, if it reaches the other side of the board, it can become anything it wants. So we do all these analogies with the students that captures them and really gets them involved and makes them fall in love with the game and makes it their world.
Tell me about the success of your team and how you built that success.
Well, it all started in Guillen Middle School. It all started with me when I won the championship. I figured if I can do it, I can get my other students when I graduate here to do it as well, right? So it was always my goal, come back to the community and do the same thing, because I already had a plan figured out. I had already walked the road. So yeah, sure enough, in 2008, when I was a tutor at Guillen Middle School, we did it again. And when I got hired at Henderson Middle School, I told my principal about it, about how we could start a chess club. And of course, it was very awkward due to the neighborhood, due to the demographics of the school. And the first year, I wanted to have 100 kids. And of course, we only ended up with around 7 or 8. Our second year, it was time to compete. So I took those kids to state. They won first place with only 6 kids. I could not take them to nationals because honestly, I think myself, I wasn't prepared either, self-esteem wise and money wise. And so we decided to wait. On the following year, we took him and we got an unforgettable 19th place. in which at that moment I declared it, I will never get a bad place again. And after that, the following year, we did another team. I was ready to quit the chess. I'm not gonna lie. I believe it talks about it in the book.
You're really competitive, aren't you?
Yes, and at that point, after that 19, I was, well, maybe this is not for me. Maybe I can't give those kids what I really wanted. I can't make them feel like champions. And this group of 12 kids, I remember they wanted to go to their first tournament here locally in El Paso. And I told them, I'm sorry guys, you guys are not ready. And they were like, yes, mister. And I told them, I will not show up, guys. So regardless to say, I got home, my kids were wearing a chess shirt that their school had given them, their own different school. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna take my kids, and my other Henderson kids showed up. Everybody showed up. Given sometimes in chess there's not that a lot of support, there's not that many kids participating, everything is volunteer. There's no pay to it. And that first tournament they got third place, which to me at third place wasn't so good. To them, it was the biggest achievement in their life.
Yeah.
And after that, they just kept me going and going and going. Sure enough, we fundraised, we took them to state, they went first place. Then we took them to nationals to Louisville, Kentucky, and again, they surprised and they won first place. These kids wanted it. The following year, they did again in the upper division. And it just keeps going.
Yeah.
I mean, these kids will keep working on it and they keep getting great results.
And obviously a lot of hard work, a lot of teaching, but one of the things that stands out to me in the book and what you talk about is that you say that this all takes love, and you felt a lot of love growing up, and you are trying to share that with the kids.
Yeah, definitely. Like I mentioned, the mentors play a big role. Mm-hmm. It's not so much what you're gonna get out of it. You have to see the importance of what the other person is gonna get out of it.
Yeah.
And that's where the love comes in. You have to care, genuinely care. You really have to care about them. You have to be real. And the students can tell when you're being real or when you're doing it for your own interest. And that's a big role. I mean, at least I can. And my mentors, the ones I mentioned, they've always been real with me. And I felt that love from them. I felt that affection. I felt that wanting for me to succeed from their part. And I did the same with my students. Of course, it was always our goal to win first place, but more than anything, it was my goal to teach them about different experiences in life, about traveling out of El Paso. Many of them have never visited a restaurant. I'll never forget the day we stopped in Subway and one of my students just stared at the menu. And I asked him, "You're not sure what to get?" And he told me, "No, it's not that. It's, I've never been to Subway, mister." I was like, oh my God, okay. So all these little experiences, traveling in an airport, security, all those little different things, going as far as taking racial comments before a match, which was this part, past Super Nationals was very surprising when it happened. We had a couple of people call us Mexican Americans. And just to be able to ignore it and focus and keep on to your goal. Mm-hmm. And this is what I wanted to bring to my kids, the love and the attention for them to understand that nothing else matters when you have a goal.
Do you worry about that with the current political environment, that there's been a lot of rhetoric, especially from President Trump in the campaign, that this is going to become a bigger issue, or has it become a bigger issue? Absolutely, I see it as growing. The biggest concern, of course, is hate and no respect. That's my biggest concern over all the political issues happening right now, that it all tumbles around no respect and hate amongst each other. And that's one of the things we're trying to break off. Yeah. We're trying to promote love. We're trying to promote affection, and we're trying to promote teamwork, especially with all the other teams, New York, Detroit, California, Nevada, Miami. We want to be friends. We want to be able for it to be a competitive sport, but in the same time be a teamwork where we all grow as Americans, ultimately, yeah. Yeah. And be strong. And this is especially a powerful statement for you because, as I mentioned earlier, some of your students actually live in Mexico and are coming across the border. So this notion of expanding the wall and this sort of talk, it's very personal. It's not just a political statement. Definitely. You're absolutely right. And like I said, there was a rise this year on racial profiling when we got to travel out, which I think we managed accordingly.
and the way it was supposed to. I mean, just by ignoring and going in there and doing what we needed to do, which was play chess and be successful.
And be champions.
Yes, sir.
You teach art at Henderson, and a lot has been said about the fact that many schools are cutting art, music, other programs. Give me a sense of the importance of these subjects and others in a well-rounded education.
Well, in a well-rounded education, you're seeing it more and more. A lot of people are cutting funds, but at the same time, it's coming up. You see STEAM, they started with STEM. Now they added the A, which is the arts, because they figured that the arts connects everything. In arts, one of the reasons I became an art teacher, it wasn't because I didn't want to work or I just wanted a quick career. It was because I wanted to teach everything. In fact, my degree allows me to teach to the second level of university. And I have a fine arts degree with a minor in education, and what it does, it allows me to teach English, it allows me to teach math, it allows me to teach history, and at the same time, it allows me to have fun and be creative. So without that creativity component, the kids get lost. It's very hard for them to understand history without really understanding the arts. And I tell my kids many of the times, if you want to study the world wars, as soon as our soldiers went in there, the very first thing they took was the artwork, because it tells the history of the people. So, I mean, and we just go beyond and into details. So in a classroom, when I feel like doing a lesson plan about math, I go into perspective, okay? When I feel like doing a lesson about creativity, I go into Jackson Pollock, Pablo Picasso, okay? So it ties everything together. And that's why I decided to teach art, and that's why I think art is very important and plays the biggest role. And it's not just the visual arts, but also the fine arts. I'm talking about orchestra and band. Many of my students are part of the orchestra and band, and it just opens their minds to new dimensions.
All important stuff.
Definitely.
And, well, thank you for what you do in the classroom and in the chess club, too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being with us. That's our time. Join us this week on KRWG Radio. Every weekday, it's Morning Edition from 5 to 9, Fresh Air at 11, followed by Here and Now, noon to 2, and All Things Considered, 4 to 7. KRWG News is always online at krwg.org, and we'd love to hear from you. Email us with your story ideas and video submissions. The address is feedback@nmsu.edu. For all of us at KRWG News, I'm Fred Martino. Have a great week. We'll see you next time on Newsmakers.